Welcome to Evan Talks Podcast, a podcast about my, your, and our mental health journeys. If you enjoy the podcast, it's available every other week, and why not follow us on Instagram and Twitter? Hey guys, before we get stuck into this week's episode, I wanted to share with you that Evan Talks pin badges, as mentioned in episode 3, are now available to order. The pin badges cost £10 each. All profits are going to Mind and Samaritans. So if you'd like to order yours, please email evan.talks2020@gmail.com with your full postal address and name, and I will give you payment details, and that way we can get them sent out to you in first class post. Thanks very much and enjoy this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Evan Talks. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm very excited today because I've got Coral and Paige with me, and we are talking about their page on Instagram, which is itsokay.needtotalk. And yeah, they are two wonderful people that I've been following intently for the last few weeks, just to kind of learn from them and kind of understand how they are dealing with their own mental health issues, but also how they're helping so many other people. So Coral and Paige, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us.
We're excited. It's going to be interesting because I've never done an interview with two people and on Zoom, so we'll see how it goes, but we'll just take it from there. Like I said, you are on Instagram with your page, It's Okay, Need to Talk. You're doing so much on there. I've kind of spent the last 3 days kind of going back and looking at all the highlights and seeing all the great stuff that you do. But for those of my listeners that might not know who you are and what you do you want to talk us through a bit about your page and what you do?
Yeah, so our page is like a mental health support page for anyone who is struggling. We've been going about over a year now. We answer every single message we receive, and I like the stopgap sort of thing between having your mental health issues, and not everyone can get access to therapy, not everyone can get access to a doctor's appointment straight away, and we find a lot of people need just some comfort when they're feeling that way, and we hope that we are that for some people. What about you, Coral? What do you think?
I love that. I think that sums it up pretty well. We try and be online as much as we possibly can, but we also refer to lots of other services as well that are 24 hours in the UK, and some international services as well. And that's, as you mentioned before, we have highlights on our page for lots of different things, and that's one of the highlights that we've got on the page as well, is for other services. Yeah,
I couldn't believe how many highlights and how much advice you've got on there. It must take you ages to put that all together.
We try and keep up to date with like frequently asked questions, because we know that we're not, obviously between the two of us, we're online as much as we can be, but it's impossible for us to cover everything 24/7 without working sort of shifts between us, which is not practical for, keep maintaining our own mental health. So,
exactly.
We try and have lots of advice that you can just go on and access without having to wait for responses to stuff as well.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, the fact that you guys tell everyone in your stories for each day when you're signing off and wish everyone a good night and stuff, I love that. I really do.
Yeah.
I think it's those little things that are going to reassure people that there are people out there that listen and care and want to be able to help. So no, it's amazing.
Thank you so much.
It really is. So it's an interesting way in which to offer a service and help. I think it's probably going to be the way that a lot of people need to start getting resource and getting help now, because so much of the world is on social media. And I think it's hard enough for people to ask for help when they're suffering with any sort of mental illness. But to be able to go on there and just find all this information without really having to ask for it is wonderful. What made this page come about, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, Paige opened it up, so I'll let her explain where it came from.
Okay.
So in March last year, I had just been suffering from pseudo seizures caused by PTSD. We didn't know at the time that they were pseudo seizures, so it was obviously a really scary time. I was just having seizures, no one knew why, and I think when it got diagnosed, is that it was actually my mental health causing that, and because I wasn't speaking about how I was feeling, and I was sort of trying to just glaze over past trauma and the way I was feeling, it actually made me physically ill. And then sadly we had the death of Mike from Love Island last year. That was March last year. And when that happened, I just thought, do you know what? I personally have needed in the past somewhere to go and just tell them how I'm feeling, and just not be alone, because mental health is it can make you feel like you're the only person in the world that's suffering. And I didn't want that. I wanted people to know that there was somewhere that they can come at any point in the day and see that they're not on their own, and message us and we message back, and just know that I just don't want anyone sitting there thinking, God, there's no way out of this, there's nowhere I can go. I don't want that. I want them to always be like, no, do you know what, I can come back from this. This isn't, and that's why. So I started it last March. That's the reason, pretty much.
Sure. If there was ever a reason, that's a very good reason.
Yeah,
it is, yeah.
And I guess, how are you able to manage your own mental health? Because it must be, I know for me, when people reach out, not many people reach out. I don't have as many followers or anything like that. But when people do reach out, it must take a toll on you. How are you managing that?
I definitely found that it did more at first when you start to get used to it. So I joined the page in October, when it started to build up a bit more than Paige could comfortably manage. And I think it works really well because there are two of us. If one of us is having a bad day, mental health wise, we just swap out. So I had a day off this weekend. Paige had a week off recently where she wasn't feeling great mental health wise. So it's good like that. It's a good balance. And also we both continue to have therapy. We actually see the same therapist, which I know is quite unusual for family members to do, but because we've had a lot of shared experiences, obviously, and we're very, very close, that's worked quite well for us and for our therapist as well. So that's how we try and stay on top of our own mental health. And our therapist told us a very interesting thing, that she actually still has to have, to keep her license, she has to have at least one therapy session with her supervisor per month. So even when we're not medically trained, but even when you are a trained, qualified therapist, you still have to have that input and that outlet because things can obviously get on top of you.
Yeah. I mean, I'd never thought about it, but that makes perfect sense, that they would need somebody to speak to too.
Yeah.
So you get loads of messages. What if it is a message and you maybe don't feel comfortable in responding or helping them further, and you think they need further help? What sort of advice do you give, or what next steps would you take?
So we always reply, but there is obviously, if someone's in danger, if someone's in danger to themselves or to someone else, then us just messaging isn't enough, and we need to sometimes get other people involved. We've called ambulances for people, we've spoken to social services. Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Cut.
No, it's fine. For people listening, it's a French bulldog. They do this. It's fine. It's cool.
It's one French bulldog setting off another two French bulldogs.
Yeah. This is working from home, guys. I'm so sorry.
It's absolutely fine.
Yeah, so we've called ambulance people, we've spoken to social services, I've spoken to schools when I've been worried about a student, so there is, and also the Samaritans are amazing, Mind is amazing, the Mix, there is so much help. And you know, if someone comes to us with like an eating disorder, we'll research in their area what help and support they can get, and try and signpost as much as we can to those to people that can, because we can't physically be there, so sometimes it needs to be a step contacting family members of the person and letting them know if they're comfortable for us to do that and stuff like that.
Yeah, of course, because in general we are a confidential service. We would never contact a school or family member or anything without permission, but we do obviously have duty of care. So if someone is at risk and we have information for them, that's the times that we have had to step in and call an ambulance or call social services and things like that. But that's just a duty of care if you have a page like this. But in general, if no one's at immediate risk, we're completely confidential service.
Yeah, amazing. So you're doing these lives on Instagram every day at 7 o'clock. Is it 7 o'clock? I've watched a few. I'm not going to.
Oh, I apologise.
No, it's great. So what can people expect for those? Because I'm not sure of my listeners how many of them follow your page, but what can they expect if they do tune in at 7 o'clock?
You can expect at least one technical difficulty. Normally, sometimes a surprise wee or some burps that were unplanned. In general, the content is it's just a nice, relaxed, cozy chat. We have people come back day after day after day. It's such a lovely community. In the comments, people have made friends. They've met up in real life. They've made like little groups where they all chat between the lives. It's so cozy and just really, really chilled and laid back. We have guests on twice a week, so Friday nights and Saturday nights we have guest lives. We've had some amazing people on. Danny actually joined us from the rant. I know that you know Danny. Dan now, apologies, he says he's grown up now. Dan now. We absolutely love doing them. We were doing live sporadically before lockdown, and we decided to do them so that people have somewhere to come at least once a day where they can feel part of a community, because I know obviously loneliness was an issue before isolation, and it just by its very nature amplifies loneliness during isolation. So it's been really, really great. We do them 6 days a week, so we don't do them on Sundays. So you can tune in every day at 7 over on our page.
Yeah, they're very entertaining. I have enjoyed them. I have enjoyed them.
Thank you.
So one thing I never really knew about, and this might be my male ignorance, was like there is such a thing as the anxiety bracelets, which you guys have. But I now understand why they help, now that I've done a bit of research, and they are actually a thing. And how long have you been doing these? Tell me a bit about them, because I'm ignorant in my manhood. Yeah.
I from when I was younger, and I had like OCD and PTSD when I was younger, my counsellor told me to have an elastic band on my wrist and to ping it whenever I feel a bad thought come on, or like an OCD like compulsion, to ping it to ground me, and to it takes like a thought and physically reminds you that you are here, and I don't know,
you're not
really
in that
helps.
Time anymore. It brings you back to the present moment.
So it's like pressing a reset button type
exactly like that.
Yes, it really helps. And so I always had an elastic band around my wrist in exams, in my A levels, everything. Always had an elastic band on my wrist. And when I started the page, I used to tell people about the elastic band technique, and some people were like, if I have an elastic band around my wrist all the time, though, people are going to be like, why have you always got an elastic band around your wrist? Like, I don't feel comfortable explaining that if someone asks me. And so, like, it planted a seed in my head, and I thought, do you know what? I think we need to make something that's physical, because we can't physically be there with everyone.
Yeah.
But they can have a piece of the page with them, and it reminds them that they're not on their own. So you can do the elastic band technique with that, and you don't have to explain that to anyone else looking at it thinks it's a bracelet. You don't have to say, oh, this is like an anxiety tool. They have the positive quote charms, so you have things like never give up, he believed he could, so he did, and she believed. Loads of positive reminders to remind you that you can do it. You can count the beads for square breathing. Square breathing is something that we really, really, really swear by if you're feeling anxious. Coral, have I forgotten anything?
We also do a men's range as well. We'd love to
I was
send
just
you
going to ask that.
one of our bracelets. Yeah, we've always had some men's bracelets, but we've brought out a few more recently, some different ones.
Okay.
So we'll definitely, if you let us know what you like, we'll get one across in the post to you, Evan. We'd love to do that.
Amazing. Oh, amazing. Thank you. Yeah, I was looking at it, and then I thought, when was it? Was last night? I was looking at your Etsy page, which is where you can find these, right?
Absolutely, yeah. The link's in our bio, and we put them on swipe ups on our stories quite a lot as well.
Perfect. But then I got distracted because that's the way
all do it.
So I didn't
need
get
a bracelet. Bring you back
the,
into the present.
Yeah.
I didn't get as far down as the men's ones, obviously. So lockdown's a big issue. I'm struggling with my own mental health during lockdown. Living alone is tough.
Oh, I can imagine.
What is your advice for people that are struggling during lockdown, just in general, obviously not specifically me? I'm okay.
I think it's so important to reach out and still have that social interaction. It must be such a big lifestyle change. I know when we've spoken before, I said that it's not a huge lifestyle change for me personally because I work from home anyway. But for you, obviously, if you're living alone, then you must be missing social interaction, and you're definitely not alone in that. We have people contact us all the time to say, you know, it's such a different lifestyle at the moment, but trying to maintain that social interaction with things like Zoom. I've just recently learned to say that properly because everyone on our page takes the mick out of me for saying Zoom.
Zoom. That sounds cool. Right. That sounds so much better than Zoom. Zoom. Let's get that going.
Okay. There's things like house party, apparently, if you're a young person. There's trying to maintain that social interaction that you would normally have. I've got a friend, Lolly, who we have had, like, not dates, but like we had a nap together. Sometimes we're not even doing anything and we're on FaceTime together, and you can do that with your friends. And I know that people in long distance relationships normally as well, outside of lockdown, I know people that have done that with their partners, just have dinner together, watch TV together. You don't have to be physically in the same room. So
I watched a movie with somebody the other day for the first time, which was great, but I am not one for people talking during a movie. So when they started talking, I just put it down underneath a cushion.
Just a subtle muting.
Just mute them. Can't be.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. My connection broke up.
Exactly.
Paige, what have you been doing? Have you got any advice?
Dogs.
Dogs, yes.
Get dogs. Everyone get a dog. No, I actually did find it really hard. I'm obviously at home now. I lost my job because of the COVID situation and like mental health stuff during lockdown. So I then was like, literally, what do I do now? And my partner's still going out to work every day, so he's still got that routine, whereas I'm like sleeping until 1 and staying up till 4. But I really do think a loose routine, like you don't have to be like at 6 a.m. I'm going to do this, at 7 a.m. you don't have to do that, but some sort of structure. That's why I really like our lives, because at 7 p.m. we all come together. That's set. That's, you know, everyone. It gives someone some routine. And to me too, I know dinner needs to be cooked before 7 p.m. So it gives me some structure, and I think, and as well, celebrating your small wins. Like if you get up,
absolutely,
and get dressed, that's amazing. Like you don't need to have done the house top to bottom and, you know, gone for a jog and done this and done that. That you need to celebrate like the little small wins, and it's really important when your mental health is taking a toll to just make sure you're doing things like drinking enough water and making sure you're eating and things like that. Like they can be the biggest struggles if you're feeling down. So I really think what's helped me in lockdown is just literally focusing on the hour ahead and just being like, I don't need to think, oh, am I going to be in lockdown for 3 months? What am I going to do for a job? What am I going to blah, blah? I think about the next hour and I get through that hour. And I think that's probably
great. Celebrating the little wins. I love that. I used to do that when I was getting counselling. You two have got a great a great relationship, obviously as sisters, but
We do.
how is doing this together, has that brought you closer, do you think? Or
Could we have got any closer?
I was just going to say if we could have got any closer, but we
are soulmates, aren't we? Let's be honest.
Ugh.
Don't you think we're soulmates? No.
It's not a phrase that sits well with me, but
we are soulmates.
Yeah, no, you're my. She calls me Papa, and I call her my son, and we just always have. You know, we're so close to each other. We see each other normally more than at least once a day, don't we? So it's hard.
Oh.
Obviously, it's a big adjustment at the moment, but where lockdown rules are being relaxed in this country, we obviously are allowed to see each other at the moment. In gardens or open spaces, so that's helping. That's been really nice, and we have been doing our shopping together for a while, socially distanced, but we go at the same time. So little things like that to keep seeing each other. But I mean, if we don't FaceTime 3 or 4 times a day, it's a weird day.
There's something wrong if that's not a thing. But do you think the Paige has brought us closer? I suppose in a way, because we always had our work life separate in a way, didn't we? And now that's together.
It's really, really nice. And we are so different work-wise. So Paige is really like she'll have an idea and she will do it straight away, whereas I'm much more methodical, think things through, but to the point where I might never have, for example, launched the bracelets yet. I would make sure that I had all my ducks in a row first, whereas Paige just shoves them up on our original ones, shoved them up on Etsy straight away, and they were out there like. And so she pushes forward with things, and I kind of bimble behind, correcting typos.
You're good because you like make me sit and think, is this right? And you make sure that I don't have spelling mistakes in my Etsy, because I'm like,
I'm much more methodical, but she is just like, just do it.
Yeah, I am. I'm impatient.
It's a good team. You couldn't have 2 of the same.
No,
it wouldn't work.
No. Well, I must say the time's gone quickly, and my questions went quite quickly. Is there anything you wanted to really talk about? Anything that you found is needing focus from the world of mental health at the moment? There's so many good things happening. I think personally, I said in my podcast, my episode with Dan, that I feel like if everyone could bring themselves together and we do it all together, then we would have such a bigger impact, because I feel like the messaging is getting a bit diluted and a bit spread, and maybe not having the same effect. But from your opinions, what would you like to see happen in the next year in terms of your page or the mental health community or whatever? Sorry, just throwing another one in there.
Yeah, I think just keep plugging away at the fact that no one is alone, and there's no shame. There should be no embarrassment saying I'm not feeling well today. There's an amazing resource for children. I don't know if you've heard of them, Lucy's Blue Day, and they write children's books explaining to children that it's completely okay to have a blue day. It's completely okay to feel angry or jealous or sad, and that these feelings pass. And I think it's so important to start those conversations super, super young, so that it's as normal to say to your parents or to anyone that you trust or to your doctor, I'm feeling mentally poorly today, as in the same way that you were saying my leg hurts or I've got a headache. And I really, really think that the more we've had a massive influx of teenagers get in touch at the moment,
Really?
And the theme of everything we hear is I'm the strong one of my friends, and I can't tell them that this is happening. But to realise that there's so much strength in saying, I don't, I have these feelings. You don't have to hide it. There's no shame. You're not doing anything wrong. But that's what we're trying to just keep conveying, keep chipping away at. That stigma, which I know that is exactly what you're trying to do as well. Yeah.
And I mean, I think for the longest time, the stigma in my own head was bigger than what was out there. Because I stood up in front of 200 people I worked with every day and told them my story and told them that this what started Evan Talks is
That's
me standing up and saying,
incredible.
and not one of them judged me, but every one of them gave me a hug that day.
You should be
That
unbelievably proud of yourself.
Yeah.
When I spoke to Dan and we had some other male guests. It's so important to have male voices and male support with mental health, obviously. And I said, what is it that makes men specifically find it much more difficult to access services? He just said it's a pride thing. You feel like you should be so strong, but there's so much strength in it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously how hard it must have been for you to stand up in front of people and then to realize that in your group of friends you will never be the only one struggling. And if everyone, male or female, if everyone is trying to protect everyone else by saying, oh no, I'm fine, how are you, everyone is sitting with their own problems and not sharing them. Whereas if one day you say, do you know what, I'm actually not feeling good, that encourages that conversation between everyone, and you will never be the only one having those feelings.
Absolutely. That's so true. Paige, anything from you?
Just similar to what Coral said, ending the stigma, people not being ashamed if they have to go on medication, people, because that's a massive thing, like I don't want to we speak to so many people that don't even tell their family that they're having to take medication or they're having to go to therapy. I just want it to be okay to just ring your friend and be like, do you know what, I had a panic attack this morning and it scared the life out of me. Like I never did that when I was young. I never did that. And I know that if someone came to me and was like, God, I'm really anxious, the next time I was anxious, I'd be like, do you know who I'm going to talk to? I'm going to talk to that person, because it takes you coming out and saying it to break the barrier of everyone just being like, yeah, I'm fine.
I love that.
And just a lot more awareness of is someone being quiet, or is someone actually really struggling, and do I need to delve more into that? Do I need to ask my friend, God, I haven't seen you in weeks, what's going on, and things like that. And I could just want it to be a constant awareness, because so many people struggle. It's unreal. And especially with anxiety, if you know it's not something to be ashamed of, and you know that even if you do have a panic attack in public, no one's going to judge you, you actually panic a lot less.
I think it makes it less likely.
It does.
Absolutely.
It does. Absolutely. So just that's what we'll be working towards, and just to let everyone know that they're not alone, and there's places for them to go, and there's services out there 24/7. You're never on your own.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for taking the time to talk.
It's been great. Thank you so much for having us. It's a real pleasure.
So if you want to check out Paige and Coral's page, it is It's Okay, Need to Talk. I will put links in the description. Please go and check them out. And if you're curious, just go and watch their lives at 7 o'clock Monday to Saturday, and you'll be hooked. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And all the best for the future.
Thank you for having us. Amazing.
Thank you for listening to Evan Talks. And if you'd like to know any other information about Evan Talks, or you would like to get involved, please check out evan-talks.com for more information.